Hello everyone, my name is Roycelectron. Welcome back to Genshin Impact. In this video, we're gonna be talking about the wolf boy, Razor. And we're gonna be talking about his strengths and weaknesses, his talent and talent upgrades, constellations, artifacts, elemental reaction, team compositions, and tips on playing him more effectively. So let's start. Razor is an Electro Claymore user that relies heavily on his basic attack, dealing great amount of physical damage. Razor is the type of character that works best while on-field, dealing continuous damage rather than an off-field damage dealer / support. His kit allows him to deal quick basic attacks considering he's a Claymore user, and the Electro element allows him to benefit from the Superconduct elemental reaction, and reduce the enemy defense, allowing him to deal more physical damage. His strength and weaknesses. So one of his strengths is he's an on-field damage dealer, which means he can stay on your field for long periods of time and still deal great damages. And also, he deals great physical damage, which means when he attacks, all his damage goes through shields even though it's reduced by a percentage of it. Next is he has fast energy recharge, which can be very useful if you want to go to his ult faster and deal elemental reactions with other characters. Also, he's a Claymore user, which means he can break Geo shields and stone shields that Hilichurls are holding. Lastly, he is an Electro user, which means he can deal Superconduct, which reduces the enemy's defense and allows him to deal more physical damage, and he can also deal Overloaded, which deal more damage. For his weaknesses, he has less time for elemental reactions due to his ult and how it works, and also he is a melee character, which means he can't hit far enough, and he has a slow basic attack speed. Next, let's talk about Razor's talents. So his basic attack, Steel Fang, perform up to 4 consecutive strikes, and his charge attack drains stamina over time to perform continuous spinning attacks, which means he does a spinning attack when you use his charge attack. And plunging attack is basically plunging from high place to ground. Skill attributes, these are all his base stats from his normal attack level 1. And this scales up when you upgrade it. His elemental skill, Claw and Thunder, hunts his prey using the techniques taught to him by his master and his Lupico. This skill has 2 phases. One is press and one is hold. So on press, swings the Thunder Wolf Claw, dealing electro damage to enemies in front of Razor. So he strikes the enemies in front of him, and upon striking an enemy, Razor will gain Electro Sigil, which increases his energy recharge rate. Razor can have up to 3 Electro Sigils simultaneously, and gaining a new Electro Sigil refreshes their duration. So when you use his Claw and Thunder attack, you get an Electro Sigil which floats around Razor, and it increases his energy recharge rate, and he can have up to 3 of those simultaneously. Next is his hold skill. Gathers electro energy to unleash a lightning storm over a small AoE, causing massive electro damage, and clears all of Razor's electro sigils, and each one of those electro sigils converts into energy, which can be used for his ult. Each electro sigil cleared in this manner will be converted into energy for Razor. So let's look at his attributes. Press has less damage than his hold skill, but it has less cooldown than his hold skill. And you get 20 energy recharge bonus per electro sigils. You get 5 energy per electro sigil absorbed, which can be done by holding your skill while having electro sigils around you. Lastly, his ultimate skill, Lightning Fang, summons the wolf within, which deals electro damage to all nearby opponents. This clears all of Razor's electro sigils, which will be converted into elemental energy for him. The wolf within will fight alongside Razor for the skill's duration. The wolf within strikes alongside Razor's normal attacks, dealing electro damage. Razor's attack speed and electro rest causes Razor to be immune to damage inflicted by the electro charge status. Disables Razor's charge attacks and increases Razor's resistance to interruption. So first off, his ult releases the wolf within him, which looks like a large electro wolf at his back, and it raises his attack speed and electro resistance, which means he gains attack speed of course, and his electro resistance will be increased, meaning you'll receive less electro damage. Next, causes Razor to be immune to damage inflicted by the electro charge. This also disables Razor's charge attack and increases Razor's resistance to interruption, which means you can do more basic attacks without getting interrupted by some enemies. Next, let's talk about his passive. First passive, Awakening. This decreases Claw and Thunder's cooldown by 18%, and using Lightning Fang resets the cooldown of Claw and Thunder. So Claw and Thunder will have 18% less cooldown, and when you use his Elemental Burst, Claw and Thunder will be available again. Next, his second passive. When Razor's energy is below 50%, increases energy recharge by 30%. Passive skill that you get by just using him on your party and being the current character is decreases sprinting stamina consumption for your own party members by 20. Not stackable with passive talents that provide the same exact effects. That means when you use Kea that has the same talent, it doesn't stack with it. Next, let's talk about his Constellations. Constellations can be acquired through getting copies of the same hero when you wish through the banners. So when you get a Razor for the first time, he has no Constellation. And when you get him the second time, you will get a Constellation unlock. You can go to his Constellation and unlock it manually. And you can have up to 6 Constellations for every character currently. I don't know if they'll increase that or something. But you will have 6 Constellations. And after that, you will not get any more Constellation upgrade materials. So his first Constellation, Wolf's Instinct. Picking up an elemental orb or particle increases Razor's damage by 10% for 8 seconds. So when you pick up any elemental orb or particle, it increases Razor's damage by 10%, which works with this elemental skill perfectly because its cooldown is 6 seconds, and you get elemental particles with that, and your damage will be increased by 10% almost permanently if you get this first Constellation. Constellation 2 is Suppression. Increases crit rate against enemies with less than 30% HP by 10%. So that means you have 10% more crit rate when you deal damage against enemies with less than 30% HP. And his third Constellation, Soul Companion, upgrades his Lightning Fang, his Elemental Burst by 3, and increases his maximum upgrade to level 15. Next is Constellation 4, Bite. When casting Claw and Thunder pressed, enemies hit will have their defense decreased by 15% for 7 seconds. So, that means you can deal more physical damage to the enemies after using Claw and Thunder for 7 seconds. His Constellation 5 is Sharpened Claws. Increases Claw and Thunder levels by 3. His Elementals will get 3 additional levels. And lastly, his 6th Constellation. Every 10 seconds, Razor Sword charges up, causing the next normal attack to release lightning that deals 100% of Razor's attack as electro damage. When Razor is not using Lightning Fang, a lightning strike on an enemy will grant Razor an electro sigil for Claw and Thunder. So that can also increase your energy recharge rate. Now let's talk about artifacts you can use on Razor to make him more efficient and deal more damage for your party. The first one is Bloodstained Chivalry. 2-piece set grants you physical damage plus 25%, which is great because Razor does physical damage and his Ascension stats is physical damage, which boosts this even more. And the 4-piece set, after defeating an opponent, increases charge attack damage by 50%. You can run Bloodstained Chivalry just by the 2-piece set. The 4-piece set is pretty useful, but you don't need that charge attack damage because when you're on your Elemental Burst, you won't be able to access your charge attack. So, my tip is, go for Bloodstained Chivalry, 2-piece, and then go for Gladiator's Finale. Gladiator's Finale 2-piece set increases your attack by 18%. So that means, what you want to do with the Razor is go with 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry and 2-piece Gladiator's Finale, or you can do full Gladiators or full Bloodstained Chivalry. So for the stats of the artifact, Sands of Eon, you want to go for attack main stat. And for the goblet, you want physical damage bonus, or you can go for attack if you want to. And lastly, on the helmet, you want crit rate, crit damage, or attack. So for the substats, you want to go for crit rate, crit damage, and base attack. Next are the elemental reactions you can do with Razor. Razor being an electro character means he deals Superconduct, and Superconduct reduces your enemy's defense. When Cryo meets Electro, Superconduct occurs. Superconduct deals AoE cryo damage and significantly decreases defense for the affected being. So that means when you deal electro damage to a cryo debuffed enemy, you'll decrease their defense significantly, and that allows you to deal more physical damage with Razor. Elemental reaction, Overloaded. When Pyro meets Electro, Overloaded occurs. The resulting explosion deals AoE Pyro damage and tears effortlessly through otherwise sturdy objects. Overloaded is a elemental reaction which deals great amount of Pyro damage with Electro damage, and it also knocks the enemies off if they're not an elite enemy. Next, let's talk about the perfect weapons for Razor. We're gonna work our way up from 3 stars to 5 star and ranking them from worst to best. Mind you that these are only preferred weapons to use for Razor, so if you don't have them, don't worry, you can use any weapons you have available and still make Razor work. On the 3 star category, we have 2 weapons, Skyrider Greatsword and the Bait Club. Skyrider Greatsword is good because of its secondary stat that is physical damage bonus. Its passive also works well with Razor considering he relies heavily on his basic attacks. The Bait Club is also good because of its secondary stat that is attack percentage. Its passive is also good on Razor because his elemental skill has a low cooldown and you will proc this passive every time you use it. Next, on the 4 star category, we have 4 weapons. First off, we have Blackcliff Slasher. This has a secondary stat that is crit damage and is perfect if you have a crit rate main stat on your helmet. The passive is also good if you're dealing with mobs and small enemies. Next is Royal Greatsword. It has a good passive if you have low amount of crit rate and high crit damage, as it allows you to get high amount of crit rate after 5 consecutive basic attacks. This weapon is currently available on Paimon's Bargain for 24 star glitters, and if you have many of those, you can buy 3 copies and refine this to rank 3. Next is the Battle Pass weapon, Serpent Spine. It has a secondary stat that is crit rate, and this is good if you have low crit rate, and its passive is a little bit on the negative side as it allows you to receive more damage the longer you're in the field. Lastly is the Prototype Aminus, which is craftable from the blacksmith, and this is free-to-play player friendly because you don't need to spend any money to get this, and the only thing that keeps you from upgrading this further is the low chance of getting a Prototype Claymore material. Its passive is also good as it allows you to deal massive amount of damage every 15 seconds by doing your basic attacks. Moving on to the 5 star category, we have the Unforged, and this is really dependent on your team composition. If you have anyone in your team that allows you to get shields, this weapon will work perfectly with Razor. It also has a great damage boost just by doing basic attacks even without a shield. And lastly, the best weapon you can use for Razor is the Wolf's Gravestone. It has a secondary stat that is attack percent, and its passive also increases your attack percent by 20%. Another good thing is when you hit an enemy with less than 30% HP, you'll receive another 40% attack for all of your party members. Next is his team compositions. Razor is an Electro Claymore user, which means what you want to do with this party is have a Cryo for Superconduct. You'll need a Healer and a secondary damage dealer or a damage booster for Razor. So this is my current team, Razor and Chongyun for the Superconduct, a Yushinian for the Pyro to break some shields, and I use this team because they're all Claymore users. You can switch Chongyun with Chi-Chi, Kea, or Diona. Anything works. If you want, you can have Diona as your healer and replace the other 2. You can also put 2 Pyros together if you have Diona. So if you have Diona as your main healer, you can use this team and change Chongyun with Diona and 2 Pyro characters that you have. Razor can also work with Fischl and any Cryo characters because the elemental resonance for having 2 Electro is getting an Electro Elemental Particle per Electro Elemental reaction dealt. So that means when you deal Superconduct, Electro Charge, or Overloaded, you get Electro Elemental Particle. So that increases your energy recharge for your ult and use your ult more oftenly. Lastly, for tips to play Razor more effectively and efficiently, first off is deal Cryo damage before you go into your Elemental Burst skill. When you use your Elemental Burst, you cannot switch characters or else you're gonna lose your Elemental Burst with Razor. So you wanna deal Cryo damage or every single one of your elemental reactions before going to Razor and using his ult to deal damage. Next is, when you're not in your ult, you can do 3 basic attacks and use your skill or dash to cancel the animation of the 4th basic attack because it takes too long to deal the damage, and doing this will increase your damage per second with Razor. What you want to do with your playstyle is go with your other characters, deal every single elemental reaction you want, like Pyro. With Cryo you can deal Melt, and every single elemental reaction you need to do it before you go to Razor ult. And before you go to Razor's ult, you need to deal cryo damage to every enemies you want to deal damage to, or use elemental skill that allows you to deal cryo damage out of field. And lastly, don't use Razor's ult when you're in Chongyun's skill circle, because that will reduce Razor's physical damage, because her basic attacks on Chongyun's elemental skill field will be dealing cryo damage. So remember that, don't use Razor's ult inside of Chongyun's cryo field. And that's it. So hope you learned something with this tips videos for Razor, and thank you guys so much for watching this episode. If you liked the video, smash that thumbs up and stars if you can. Leave a comment down below what you want to see next, and yeah, electrify.
Electrify with you.
So thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.